what we are first going to do is this, right? We are going to first ask this question: why do you want to be productive? It's like the main sort of like a question that you should ask yourself, because otherwise what happens is productivity is not a end to its means. It's something that makes your life much better. So you need to have a very personal view of why do you want to be productive. So first idea is to give me purpose and make something more of my time, just to get more and more meaningful things done. And with time spent on things, I want to know a better way to manage multiple things, to achieve more in life and make maximum use of my time, to get the best output in a period of time. That's a good list of things. So just to make it clear why I wanted to kind of bring you guys the attention of this, why do you want to be more productive? It's actually because productivity has two aspects of things. One is time and the other one is energy, and then there's attention. So if you have a good understanding of why you want to be productive, you can start using those three things in a more efficient manner. So right now you guys are everyone has their own set of things that they do. So let's take 2 minutes, write down what type of things that they do. It could be a to-do list, Pomodoro timers, whatever the things that they are already using. Just write that down on this workshop area notes. All right, we have few things that are put in here. To-do list, focus mode, maintain a daily to-do list, focused on one thing at a time, Pomodoro techniques, work on more meaningful tasks, things like passion plus interest, making to-do list for the whole day, work plus personal whenever possible, so time is only spent on getting the to-dos done. So this is some good techniques that you guys are doing. So this is good. I'll come back to this again later on. So now let's get to what we are here to discuss today. First thing is identifying like what it is, right? So first is that you need to be effectiveness. Effectiveness is basically like how well you do something, and efficacy is how much of it is done, right? Then efficiency is where you actually try to see whether how do you kind of expand the amount of things that is done. So these things will come into the picture when you start to think of any sort of task. So these three things of how you do certain things help you to identify quite a few aspects of what you do. So for example, if you think of, hey, I want to learn how to do back-end coding, right? And in that you'll think, what's the best way that I can do it? How do I do it best? And how do I do it more often? So that's the way you can start thinking when it comes to productivity. Then comes a couple of principles when it comes to productivity, which has actually to do with a few segments. So first is actually task completion. So for when it comes to tasks, deletion box is very important, because most of the time more and more tasks will get piled up, and sometimes certain tasks don't make sense. That's asking the question for a specific task, what's the point? Just like whether it's effective or not. If it's not something that's worth doing, just don't do it. The next thing is about deferment, right? Which is like, let's say there is something important but not urgent. The moment it becomes important, you take it up. The urgent and important ones are stuff that you start to clear up as fast as possible. And whatever that is urgent and not in try to delegate that to people who have the expertise. This is like a top line view of things. You can actually start splicing things down more by looking at your task inbox. The next part of this is actually about time and energy management, right? When it comes to like being productive or doing anything, there is like a sort of a amount of time and energy that people have. So you can create a calendar and have like blocks of time for specific. At the same time, you need to also manage your energy. So for example, let's say you have like bunch of meetings and thinking that you are gonna get into a lot of productive work just after, let's say, a lot of coding or some sort of a solo work right after the meetings is not gonna happen, because the way your energy is kind of bundled together is different. So you have to have certain things to couple it up. Like for example, maybe after a bunch of meetings you have your lunch, and then after your lunch you are resetted back into being able to do something productive. Likewise, you identify what that is for you. This is like a very personal thing that you can't take one person's time blocks and then identify what it is. So my suggestion for you guys is to do the time blocks and review it every week. Once you review it, you will find out, hey, is this working for you or not? The next thing is about procrastination.
When in college, I had to write a lot of papers. Now, when a normal student writes a paper, they might spread the work out a little like this. You get started maybe a little slowly, but you get enough done in the first week that with some heavier days later on, everything gets done and things stay civil. I would have it all ready to go, but then actually the paper would come along, and then I would kind of do this. And that would happen every single paper. But then came my 90-page senior thesis. Those first few months, they came and went, and I couldn't quite do stuff. And one day I woke up with 3 days until the deadline, still not having written a word. I wrote 90 pages over 72 hours, pulling not one but 2 all-nighters. Now, I had a hypothesis that the brains of procrastinators were actually different than the brains of other people. So here's the brain of a non-procrastinator. Now, here's my brain. Both brains have a rational decision maker in them, but the procrastinator's brain also has an instant gratification monkey. So the rational decision maker will make the rational decision to do something productive, but the monkey doesn't like that plan. And he says, actually, let's read the entire Wikipedia page of the Nancy Kerrigan-Tanya Harding scandal, because I just remembered that happened. The instant gratification monkey does not seem like a guy you want behind the wheel. He lives entirely in the present moment. He only cares about 2 things, easy and fun. How does the procrastinator ever get himself over here to this blue zone? A less pleasant place, but where really important things happen. That the procrastinator has a guardian angel, someone called the panic monster. The panic monster suddenly wakes up anytime a deadline gets too close or there's danger of public embarrassment or some other scary consequence. This entire situation with the 3 characters, this is the procrastinator's system. It's not pretty, but in the end, it works. Everything I've talked about today, the examples I've given, they all have deadlines. And when there's deadlines, the effects of procrastination are contained because the panic monster gets involved. But there's a second kind of procrastination when there is no deadline. So if you want to have a career where you want to be a self-starter, something in the arts, something entrepreneurial, you're exercising and taking care of your health. There's no deadlines on those things at first. All of these non-deadline situations, the panic monster doesn't show up. So the effects of procrastination, they're not contained. They just extend outward forever. And it's this long-term kind of procrastination that's much less visible. It's usually suffered quietly and privately, and it can be the source of a huge amount of long-term unhappiness. Now, I want to show you one last thing. I call this a life calendar. That's 1 box for every week of a 90-year life. We need to think about what we're really procrastinating on. We need to stay aware of the instant gratification monkey. That's a job for all of us. And because there's not that many boxes on there, it's a job that should probably start today.
So how many people over here can relate to that? Like what just was shown on the video? Deadlines and how their brain sort of works. Okay, we can raise their hands. Akansha, Melissa, who are the other people? So everybody else is not a procrastinator. That's great.
No,
Yes.
I'm like the latter one. I don't have like deadlines. Life worksheets.
The other ones. All right. But yeah, so the idea is that you have to be very aware of how you work, in a sense. And procrastination is one of those things which different people work different. That not all procrastination is bad. It's just the way you use it. So try to identify these things when it happens to you. So understanding procrastination is very useful. Next part of this is actually habits and routines. So habits and routines is very like a very important aspect of productivity, and also like generally living a good life. So for example, there are like certain things that are good habits, and there are certain things that are sort of like bad habits. So these good habits and bad habits are things that you can't really you have to have your own view of things. So important part of this is that these habits are things that you have to observe in yourself. Like, nobody can say this is a good habit or bad habit, but then there is something called keystone habits. These keystone habits are thing that helps people. Like for example, if you take fitness, right? Even if you take just running or doing sit-ups or doing push-ups every day, if you do a little bit of things to get your heart pumping, etc., it has a very good effect on your overall well-being. This actually has a lot to do with this scientific idea of like your body releases this hormone called serotonin. So whenever you have serotonin in your system, you feel very happy and you feel a certain amount of bliss. These keystone habits are things that you can search and find out. And my suggestion is go and read this book called The Power of Habit. It actually explains a lot about like how you can identify certain habits and use certain ways to change how you do things.